evening. My name is Rose Blaze, and this is the live book show where we have authors come on board to talk about the books, to talk about the messages that they want to convey within the books. So welcome everybody, welcome this evening. On my left, I'd like to welcome my guest panellist, Omawale. Good evening.
Yes, good evening, Rose.
Welcome, it's good to have you here. Now, for my esteemed guest, Khadijah Ward, author of Black Sterling. Good evening, Khadijah.
Good evening, Rose, and to the viewers, thank you for having me here.
It's wonderful having you here, Khadijah. As usual, we're going to kickstart the show by me asking you just to tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, my parents are from Barbados, and I have like 6 siblings.
Okay.
We grew up in Highbury in a 1-bedroom house, and things were very, very difficult for us. I mean, like they were for, you know, most people that came from the Caribbean. And I did have a very kind of a very hard life, struggled like everybody else within, you know, the white supremacist system. It was very, very difficult. But now I'm actually an author of many books, of Black empowerment books. Thank you so much, for children and adults alike. And my focus now at this time in my life is to empower the Black community to achieve Black liberation and self-reliance and collective wealth.
Thank you for that. That was a wonderful introduction. Okay, so now if I ask you to just tell us a little bit about the book, Black Sterling. Give us an overview of the book.
Black Sterling really is a book, again, for people to create unity, for the Black community to create unity, self-reliance and collective Black wealth. And what Black Sterling talks about, first of all, it deconstructs the white supremacist system, the white terrorist system, as I like to call it. So it talks about the system and how we are controlled under that system. So it talks a little about that so people understand where they are within this society. And then it talks about when we were rich, when we ruled in life, and then it talks about how we should work in unity, again, to be liberated, and how we should remove ourselves from the system and from the corporate plantation to achieve self-reliance and to govern ourselves, and again to achieve collective wealth, what we had in the past. It also has 7 steps within the book as well. There's 7, what I call 7 inspirational steps that it has in the book, so that people can find it easy to implement the content of the book. In terms of unity, working together to achieve collective wealth and liberation.
Yes, and I found that I really enjoyed the steps actually, because I saw it as a toolbox of sorts, ways in which we can then begin to implement and strategize how to implement, as you say, self-sufficiency. So that was really great. I know that you wanted to talk to us a little bit about the introduction. Would you like to read a little bit of that to us? There was something in the introduction that you wanted to share.
Yeah, on the first page of Black Sterling, I just thought I wanted something that would really capture people, that would capture the audience. So what I did was I wrote, if law was passed tomorrow that stated we are no longer housing Black people on our council estates, we are no longer allowing people, Black people, to work on our corporate plantations, we are no longer allowing Black people to shop in our supermarkets, how would you survive? And so I was asking people that question so that they can stop and think about, what would you really do if the system that controls you then took away that control but switched the control to something else? What would you do? You know, look at where you are now, try to put yourself in a situation where you can have your own power, so that you don't have to abide by the laws that we are under at the moment. So that was quite impactful, and it turned out to be a prophecy, to be honest, in terms of like the COVID-19, where we were told that we couldn't actually go to the supermarket. Well, we could go, but we had to queue up. So again, it's that instruction, it's that control. And we as a people, we were under that control because we didn't have any kind of organisation, any kind of infrastructure of our own. So we had to abide by these laws. But for me in Black Sterling, I wanted people to think about, what would you do if they told you that you couldn't do this? The very people that are controlling you, if they said they won't house you, if they said you can't bank with them, if they
Right.
said you can't buy their food, how would you survive?
It shows how dependent
Yeah.
we are. This is the
Exactly.
thing. It shows how dependent we are, and it's really, really important that people actually take a step back and think about that question,
Yeah.
and then begin to look at ways in which we can develop different forms of self-sufficiency in different areas of our lives. Okay, so that basically answers the first step, isn't it? Basically answers in terms of imagining what that would be like, and then networking with those of like mind on a path of unity and collective organisation. I don't know if you want to elaborate on that a little bit more, or whether ideally you've answered the question in terms of posing it to our audience. Okay, so I'm not sure whether you now want to talk about the next step, the second step, or whether you choose to elaborate a little bit more, because what I see here is that you speak about the corporate plantation. So I don't know if you want to speak to us a little bit about the corporate plantation, because that's ideally what we're living in now, isn't it? You know, when you talk about, you know, where we are now and the systems that we adhere to now, the corporate plantation. Please speak to us about that.
Well, the first chapter of Black Sterling is who controls the system that controls you.
Right.
So it talks about the systems that we're under, and the corporate plantation is just one part of that system.
Right.
So the corporate plantation is the 9-to-5 job that we're all trained, to aspire to.
Absolutely.
Even when we're very young. I mean, I was told to go and study, go to
Yeah.
university and go and get a job. So
That's right.
we're told to go to work for somebody. We're not
Right.
told to be entrepreneurs, to try to build for ourselves. We are taught to
Like
go to
sheep.
work for somebody else. And that's all a part of the system. So I talk about the system, a lot about the system, the prison system,
Yes,
and the
that's what
corporate
you-
plantation is just one
Yes.
part of the system. But
Yes.
that is one of the parts of the system that keeps us under control. Because
Yes.
under this system, we have our wage, so we get paid every
That's
month.
right.
And we live according to that wage, don't we? We
Yes.
live on
Yes.
that wage. So every month we look forward to having this wage. We don't do it, we have our credit cards and, we live within those means.
Right.
But we don't really have anything above that. So we have to keep going back to the corporate plantation in order to get this wage.
In order to live, isn't
And
it?
that is how we are kept within the system. We keep the system going by working within it on the
Right.
corporate plantation.
Keeping it preoccupied.
We keep it occupied. We feed it. We fuel
That's
it.
right, that's
Yeah.
right.
And so we keep it going. And before we know it, we're 65, 70, and our life's over.
Our lives
That's it.
over.
We haven't done anything. So we talk. So it talks about the corporate plantation,
Yes.
and it talks about how we should try to escape from the corporate plantation.
Right,
And I
okay,
talk
you
about
do.
how I escaped from the corporate
Yes,
plantation
you
as
do.
well. But it's the whole system, looking at how the system controls us,
Mm-hmm.
and it's about thinking, really thinking, using your intellect and analysing the system. We have to stop and think what we're doing
Yes.
instead of going through day to day without thinking, just going through and acting. We have to think about what we are doing. Who is controlling us? Why are we doing this? What's the aim of this? What's going to be the end game of this?
Yes.
And when we stop and think and start thinking about it, that's when we will act and start to progress towards, liberation and collective wealth. But we have to understand that we're in a matrix. We have to understand that we're
Right.
in a control system
Yes.
first. And that's why the first chapter is who controls the system that controls you. And it talks about corporate plantation,
Right.
white terrorism, and all of those things, the whole structure.
That's right. And then again, we have our parents as examples. You get to 65, and then what? Do you know what I mean? So you then go on. Sorry.
Can I just ask
Of
very
course,
quickly?
Samawale.
I mean,
Yeah.
you have talked about the corporate element, and you've given a description of the corporate element. Could you briefly give a description of the other parts of that control system?
The other parts that I talk about are, let me talk about, for example, maybe the music industry is another
Yeah.
part of control.
Yes.
The music industry is something that they understand, the people that control us, the white terrorist system that control us,
Yes.
they understand that what music does for you. Music really generates feelings,
Yes.
good feelings.
Yes.
So, and that in turn generates money. They understand about that system, So again, it's about controlling us through another aspect of a system.
That's right.
So the music industry is a system of control.
Yes.
Yeah. So they have all of our musicians, and they're the ones that help them create. Well, we create the music, but we have to do it according to their standards. So we have to say what they want us to say.
Yes.
And again, in the lyrics of the music, that's how they control us through the lyrics. So they make us act, because music is so powerful. It
Yes.
can make you act
It is.
and do certain things, yeah?
Absolutely.
Positive or negative, yeah? And so the way the music industry works is it makes it work on a negative. It makes us hate ourselves,
Yes.
and it makes us feel that we are not worthy. So we act out, particularly the younger generation.
And hip
We
hop.
act out, hip hop. I've got it in there. Hip hop,
do,
a state
you
of
do talk about it.
hypnosis. So I talk about that as us being in hypnosis in terms of hip hop and music.
Yeah.
But again, it's another form of control, yeah, where they control our minds, so we act in a certain way, and they keep us captivated within this system, yeah. So all we want to do, we want to buy the music. We want to just have the fast cars. We want to have all the gold chains.
Yes.
So it's just it's an empty form
empty
of
lifestyle.
empty
It
life,
is.
and it doesn't take you anywhere.
True,
but
true.
again, it's a control system, and people don't understand that that is a control system.
Now you speak about that. You then actually went on to say, if you don't follow the status quo, you speak about from the cradle to the jail.
Yeah.
Which was really interesting. You know, so if you're not following the system, it's then what happens. So speak to us about from the cradle to the jail that you speak about.
The cradle to the jail, again, is what the brother was asking me about systems. So again, it's systems, the whole infrastructure of the system. So
Right.
the cradle to the jail talks about how our men, as boys, they come in from the cradle and then they go to the jail, because it's a complete system to put them into jail. Again, it's a corporate entity.
Right.
The prison system is a corporate entity.
Yes.
So what they do is they put us in that system so that it breaks up the family. Again, breaking up the black family is another form of destruction of the
Yes.
system. So they get our men into the system of jail. Yeah.
Yes.
So once they get into the jail, so they make it difficult for us. For example,
Yes,
so that
one-parent
we're in ghettos.
families.
Yeah, we're in ghettos. We have
Yeah.
one-parent families.
Don't
So
have the representation of the male in the
so
home.
it's inevitable that a large majority will end up in the prison system, and then within that prison system, then you become a commodity within that prison system,
Right.
and it makes money for a lot of white corporations. So when you think about who supplies the shirt, who supplies the footwear,
Right,
who
right.
supplies the food, who
Yes, who
supplies all
builds
the
the
things,
prisons.
who supplies all of those things. So all of these corporations are receiving monies
Yes.
and growing bigger into big
Yes.
industries
Yes.
from on the black man of the African.
That's right.
Yeah. So again, it's from the cradle to the jail, and
Yes.
that's what I talk about. We go
Right.
from the cradle, we go to the school, and then we go to the jail.
Right, so thank you for explaining that, because you say, you know, from school, if we're not cut off from the economic chain at school because you've been excluded, we talk about the employment figures. For example, the national statistics in 2012 talk about, you know, UK's unemployed figures between 16 to 24 is a 50% rise in the long-term unemployed for the same group by 2015. And that, again, is a reflection of us, in a sense, failing. And you know how and why that happens is
Well, we're
left to
set
be
up to
desired.
fail, aren't we? We're set up
Right,
to fail.
right,
Yeah.
right. Which is what you go on to explain, and then we talk about step 2, which is about looking at solutions. So providing life skills, manhood ceremonies, mentoring programs, and potential leaders. So could you elaborate on step 2 for us, please?
Well, again, it's step 2's talking about, if I can remember, I haven't even read my own book for such a long time.
Such a long time.
But
I know that feeling.
step 2, I think it may be gearing towards unity. So it's about
Yes.
working with other people, like-minded
Yes.
people like you,
Yes.
and other organisations
Right, right.
that can help us elevate ourselves. Yeah. So again, I spoke about Manhood Academy Global.
Yes.
That's an organisation that deals with young boys, and it does the rites of passage to Gambia. So working with them, and it works with parents as well.
Yes.
So working with them, and there's a few other organisations that I mention. But again, it's about collaborative working so that we can have mentoring.
Right.
Yeah, because we
right.
do need mentoring. We do need to work together to build. We do need to buy each other's products and services,
Yes.
so that we can build our businesses
Yes.
into large industries. Because we can't grow if people don't buy our products or buy our
Right.
services. So
Right.
again, that's about collaboration,
Right.
working together.
And then that leads us very nicely into step 3, where you speak about the entrepreneur. So if you can just elaborate about that, working black-owned businesses, companies that you speak of, because you speak very much about getting to that place of self-sufficiency. So just speak to us about what the black entrepreneur looks like, that state of self-sufficiency.
Well, first of all, I think I'd like to talk about, just briefly, about
Okay.
myself in
Yes.
the corporate plantation.
Right,
Yeah?
okay.
As because I was, like anybody else, encouraged to go to, get a good job,
Yes.
go and study, get a good job,
That's
which
right.
I did. I had
Yes.
many good jobs. I was in the corporate plantation. I experienced racism. I had to fight people. I had to, take people to court. And then in the end, I just thought, I can't take this anymore. I need to be working for myself.
Yes.
Because you're actually making other people rich. You're making these people rich. And what do you have? You just have your wage. That's all you have. And if I use my sister as an example, my
Yes.
younger sister, I write about her in the book,
You do.
that she worked in a bank. That was her very first job.
Right.
And from that very first job, she said, I can't do this. So she said, what can I do that can give me freedom, economic freedom? How can I be an entrepreneur and work for myself? So she decided to, go into business for herself, which she did. So, I mean, a black entrepreneur is someone that, for me, is someone that has courage to remove themselves from a system. You have to have courage to do it, because it's easy to depend upon this system because it gives you that sense of security in a way.
Yeah.
So you don't want to leave it, but you have to have courage to say, I need to go out on my own and I need to do this. Yeah, I need to try to build for myself or
Right.
build for my community. Yeah. So the entrepreneur will be someone that's brave, someone that's very brave, that believes that they can go out and and they can work on their own. And then once you're an entrepreneur, then you have to start working with other people, trying to collaborate, but also trying to get people to buy your products or your services, whichever one that you're offering.
It's building that business.
It's
acumen,
building
isn't
the
it?
business, so it's understanding. We have to understand about business. So it's understanding about the marketing and all the aspects
That's
of business.
right.
We have to understand
That's
that.
right.
Yeah. So we have to understand what does it take to build a business. But at the end of the day, you do need customers. So
Yeah.
we need people to
Yes.
buy into our products and our
Services,
services.
yes.
Yeah. So it's all. So yeah. So an entrepreneur, in the first instance, I would say, is someone that's brave. They take that step towards independence.
Which is good. And one of the undercurrents that you spoke about as well was about that self-hatred, that this system that we're in perpetuates self-hatred, which again takes us a far cry away from wanting to rise and be that independent person. If your mindset isn't there, then it's not going to happen, which leads us on to chapter 4, where you actually state, once upon a time we were rich.
Yeah.
So can you talk to us about that?
Yeah, I mean, I talk about the still in change. Just quickly,
Yes,
briefly. I mean,
yes.
the system is so sophisticated. It does make us hate ourselves, and that's why we don't do for self, because we don't believe in ourselves. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's that part. Excuse me. So
It's all right.
I talk about once upon a time we were rich, because people have to understand that we were rich.
Where are we coming
didn't
from?
start from slavery. You'd be surprised how many people believe that we started off as slaves, and that's the beginning of our
It's ignorance for
yeah, yeah. I mean, I remember being in school. I was only about 12 or 11 at the time, and I first heard about slavery because my parents didn't tell me about slavery.
you. No.
I first heard
No,
about
did not.
slavery in school,
Yes.
and I was so shocked when I saw images. It's just I couldn't believe that this is what I came from. I didn't know anywhere else. I didn't know we were rich. I didn't know anything. All I knew about was the Caribbean. I didn't know anything else. So some people, even today, they believe that we just came from slavery, but we were rich. And to me, it's about believing, understanding that we came from richness. We ruled, yeah? We ruled and we were rich. So we have to understand that. And once you believe that, once you know that you come from that, you come from greatness,
Yes.
yeah? Then you start to believe. If you believe that you was just a slave,
But
and
if
that's
this-
all you were,
But Khadijah, if this is what the curriculum teaches us in British schools, if that's what the curriculum teaches us, that's what we understand to be real.
well, that's why I talk about we should be educating our own children. We shouldn't be in schools. We shouldn't be in mainstream schools. There's many ways. There's so many schools that you can teach your children online. We can create things on schooling online. There are a few schools that I do know about, and a few different people that are trying to do.
And we can log it on the end of the
Yes,
programme.
and there's homeschooling, and there's a good colleague of mine, Kay Johnston, that's built her own school. She had a big fight with the Department of Education, but in the end she built her own school. But so she can show people as well how to actually legally remove your child from the mainstream system, and then you can either homeschool or create your own schools. So we should be educating our own children. It makes no sense whatsoever to allow the enemy, I'm sorry, I have to say the enemy, to be educating your children. It's foolhardy. I can't even understand why we're allowing
I remember coming to your book launch many years ago. It was a wonderful book launch.
Thank
there you actually spoke of this story of this lady who wanted to open a school to teach our children about the history. And in the book you then go on to talk about Blacknificent, which I thought was a wonderful title, where you begin to talk about the heroes and the sheroes, so that we can give our children that sense of, well-being, that sense of ownership, pride and everything else.
We need to understand that we were leaders, and that we've done great things in society, and we started the civilization. We have to understand that, and then we have something to aspire to. Our children have something to aspire to. We have our own superheroes. We don't need the superheroes that are presented to us. We have our own, and we have to promote those to our people, to our younger people.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then,
Can you perhaps just give us an indication of one or two of the superheroes that perhaps existed before the enslavement?
Well, when I was talking about, because I'm talking about economics in Black Sterling, then I talk about people that have done things like economically to promote. So I talk about Marcus Garvey, and I talk about Malcolm X as well, because he was into, self-sufficiency, self-reliance.
Yes.
So Marcus Garvey, Malcolm X. I've got the Blacknificent Eight, so I name 8 people.
Yes,
I can't even remember the 8 people that I name, but I name 8 people. But they're 2 of the people that I promote, because they are people that understood that we need to be doing for self. And not only did they understand it, they actually practically did something about it. So for me, it's showing these are heroes.
Yes.
Against all odds, these people, they did something to make change, positive change for our people.
Yes, Marcus Garvey.
Are there any examples of women who did equivalent things? You mentioned Marcus Garvey. You mentioned Malcolm X. Are there any
I
women?
mentioned also Queen Nzinga. I mentioned Queen Nzinga in my book. I mentioned her again in my newer book as well, and also in Dark Girl Boss I mentioned her as well. In fact, in my other book I talk about that after. I mentioned a lot of women in that book. But I mentioned her because she actually fought on the battlefield to prevent the slave hunter, the Portuguese. So I mentioned her as well as a hero, as a shero. Someone that fought on the battlefield as well. So I do mention women, of course,
Harriet
as
Tubman,
well.
you mentioned as well.
Harriet Tubman. I mentioned quite
a few.
Yeah, I mentioned quite a few different. There's 8 people that I mentioned. There's 8 people that I mentioned.
And what's lovely about that is you then kind of swiftly went on to look at, how to strategize bringing people together. All of these, us having these sheroes and heroes as examples. You then went on to talk about, now that we have that inner sense of pride, let's now begin to talk about how we mobilize, how we strategize. And then you started to talk about us coming together. And a really interesting example you raised actually is, according to a census, according to the amount of people within a diaspora, if say, I don't know, we had 19 million people, for example, from a diaspora, and if each of them was to give, was it £1 or £10, how much that would be accumulatively, something like 19 million or something you'd sort of said in the book. And then with that with those funds, we can then start projects of our own. So could you elaborate a little bit on that for us? Because that was really interesting and made so much sense.
Well, it's about understanding the power of our own economics, our own economic power.
Yeah.
I mean, we do have money. As a race, we have money because we go and
largest
spend.
Consumers, aren't
Yeah,
we?
we are the largest consumers. We go and spend on designer clothes. We go and buy big cars. We have money. So it's about bringing that money within the community and collectively.
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
And then use it because I use the model, the same model as like the Nation of Islam, where they say like they call a dollar. You give $1, and then you can accumulate that dollar. Everyone gives the dollar, and then you can. The amount of money that you can accumulate, you can start building with that money. You can start doing your own schools. You can start creating your own business. You can start, providing programs for young people. There's so many things that you could do if you just came together with your
dollar. I mean, again, you spoke about the psychology of our counterparts and them understanding us as consumers, us as spenders, and how important, as it's named, the Negro dollar was from quite some time back. And in understanding that, they were able to sustain those economies to build their economics. You spoke about that, which was really, really interesting. So then you talked about Take It Black. So could you talk to us a little bit about that?
Well, Take It Black, first of all, it was about I think it was in the 1950s in America. There was a documentary on the spending of the Negro. I can't remember the title of it now, but it was, what they did was they studied our spending. And so, and from the study of the spending, then they created programs in order to make us spend.
Yes.
They did that, and that was in the US that they did that. And the Take It Black, for me, was to say take back our own industries, particularly black hair care, which is an industry that we are the highest consumers, but we don't really own it. We don't own that industry, which is absolutely ludicrous. So I think it was worth back then about 5 billion or something here when I wrote the book. I'm not sure what it's worth now. But we are not, we're just the consumers of that. So we don't own that. So we're not rich. We're not rich from that. So we've made, and I mentioned one particular organisation. I'm not going to mention them here because I'm not going to give them any airplay. But this organisation, they've become multimillionaires. They're an Asian organisation. They've become multimillionaires on the black woman because we're the ones that go and buy all the hair grease, so they've earned money from us. But we don't have anything, but they're multimillionaires. So we've helped them to build a legacy for their children.
Food as well.
Yeah, food and
that's happened in food too.
And food as well, because usually it's like the Turkish you find and Asian people as well that sell Caribbean food. As well. So they sell. What they do is they sell our products back to us. And they make and they laugh at us as well because we come and buy from them, but we don't own these shops. Even if you do find some, I mean, I actually have a Caribbean shop not far from me, and I shop there, but he's just one shop. I don't know how many others there are. There aren't many. And so the Take It Black, the concept of was the Take It Black. Yeah, it was a play on words, obviously.
Yes.
Take It Black was to start by taking back our own industry. So it was the hair care, and the food. Those are the first ones we should take because they're the things that we really own. They're ours. Yeah.
Right. Wonderful. So towards the end of the book, you then have a collection, and I don't recall step 7, where you were reviewing all of the steps and giving us a conclusion. So in concluding, what would you say in concluding Black Sterling and what it is that the messages that you actually want to convey in concluding?
In conclusion, I think, as if I can remember rightly, I was saying that review all of the steps.
Yes.
Review the steps and try to implement them in your everyday life because they're very simple steps.
Yes.
And I even said, I always say, a 10-year-old could read that book.
Yes.
And take the steps because it's very simple. So there's simple things that we can do every day. The steps are very simple. So review them and try to do them.
Emulate them. Yeah.
Yeah. Just once. I mean, there was one reader that read the book. She gave a fantastic review. I think I sent you the review of it. Yeah, her name's Princess
Yes.
Hannah Rebel. She's done a great
Yes,
review. But she
did.
says that every day she uses black sterling to help her.
Wow.
Yeah, she uses
Wow.
it. She actually
But
uses
this
it
is
as a
it.
tool.
It's like a tool book, isn't it? And I think it is so helpful. And like you say, it's so practical in the way that you've written it. And it's very clear after each chapter. You've summarised what the next step needs to be
Yeah.
in terms of the practical application. So it is clear. So thank you so much for that. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
Really
thank
enjoyed
you.
reading it. But I
Thank
wanted
you.
to leave some time for us to talk about your new publications.
Mm.
So if you can take 5 or 10 minutes to actually talk us through your new publications.
Sure, okay. Well, after Black Sterling came Dark Girl Boss.
Right.
Now, I wanted to, Dark Girl Boss is a part memoir, part self-help book.
Okay.
And I wanted to write Dark Girl Boss because I wanted to tell people a lot about my story. It's Dark Girl Boss from self-hate to great.
Right.
So I wanted to talk a bit about my story, like as a child where I didn't like myself. I was like, I wanted to be white. I was only about
Wow.
5 or 6.
How powerful is that?
Yeah, so I felt that I needed to write about it. So I've written about my story, and within that, I've given people some steps as well to help them, you know, understand their own greatness. There's stories in there as well from other women. So there's about 5 women in there that have done, you know, created good businesses.
All right,
So
okay.
they've made good within the society that we live in. I've
Excellent.
also mentioned like a lot of again some sheroes in there, good sheroes. I
Right.
can't remember what they are. I'd have to look at them to go through, but some good sheroes in there
Right.
as examples of how great we really are. And again, I have steps because I like when I write, I always do steps in my book
Right. Excellent.
because I like people to take steps. So in Dark Girl Boss, there are Empress Unity steps, I call them.
Right.
Because
Okay.
this is about the black woman coming together. We must love each other as empresses, as sisters, and work together. So this is what this book is about,
Okay.
making us work together and loving each other, not hating on each other, loving each other. So Empress Unity is the key within this book.
Excellent.
And this book, though, really, I just need to quickly tell you about the
Controversy
the controversy behind
around
it.
the name.
I was thinking to myself, what shall I name this book? And then Dark Girl Boss just sprung into my head. And I thought, yeah, let me just call it that. So I thought, let me trademark the name because I wanted to build a brand. I wanted it to be international. I wanted to help, you know, young girls across UK, you know, internationally as well, across
Right.
Africa, Caribbean. So I thought, let me trademark it. And then I went to trademark it. And then it was opposed by Hugo Boss.
Could you imagine?
So Hugo Boss, I received the letter. One day I received, you know, there was a knock on the door. I received, it was a postman, and then it was the big like envelope he gave me. I thought, God, what's this? I opened it. It was a 9-page threatening letter from Hugo Boss telling me to stop using the name Dark Girl Boss.
Wow.
It said I must take down my Twitter account. I must take down my Facebook account. And all my social media, I had to stop using it. I had to stop now.
Wow.
Yeah? And I must sign something to say that I will never use it again. If I do, then they're going to take me to court. So they threatened me with court action if I continue to use the word Dark Girl Boss.
These people are worth millions and millions of dollars.
So I mean, you've just received what looks like a terrible threat from a multinational company.
Yep.
What did you do?
Well, first of all, I stood there, my son was standing there, and the blood drained from my face. So he went, Gov, because my son calls me Governor, so he said, Governor, what's the matter? And I went, you go, boss, they're trying to sue me, they're going to sue me.
Wow.
So I was in a shock at first, okay? I got on the phone, I phoned everybody, I was telling all my friends, you go, boss, they're trying to sue me. Then after that, I calmed down. I thought to myself, I'm an empress.
Hey, my sister.
I love myself.
Absolutely.
You go, boss, you can't do this to me. So I lay down, it was in the night, and I laid and I thought, what can I do to stop them? Because I couldn't fight them in the courts because they could take my house and make me
Of course not.
bankrupt.
Yes.
So I couldn't fight them, so I thought, I'm going to fight them in the media.
Right. Good
So I,
strategy.
took to social media. I was telling everybody, racist Hugo Boss. They're not allowing me to use Hugo, but they're not allowing me to use Dark Girl Boss. I went to the papers. I was featured. A whole spread I had in the Voice
The
newspaper.
voice, I recall.
Also in iNews as well.
Okay.
I was on BBC News, BBC Radio nationally, and I think I was in another paper. I can't remember the name of the other paper that I was in, but it was everywhere. And I was going to also do a protest outside of their flagship store in Regent Street.
Wow, okay.
And you have to tell them when you're going to do a protest, you have to inform the police, and the police will inform them. So they will,
Company.
yes, so they know. So it has to be, you know, all done formally.
Yeah, also.
So they knew I was going to thing. But when I was on when I went onto the national radio, they said, "Oh, we've been trying to contact her to try to come to some agreement." Lies. They haven't been trying to agree with me. They haven't.
Power of public protest. Wow.
Yeah, so you know, in the end, they just they went away. They said we're not going to take any more action.
Wow.
Yeah, and they said it
What a
publicly.
story.
They said it publicly. Yeah.
What
yeah.
a story.
So this multinational company launches an attack against you,
Yes.
and you seem to be responding by launching a counterattack in
exactly what
another
happened.
arena.
In
Yeah.
another arena.
That's
What
right.
gave you the courage to launch a counterattack against a multinational
Yeah.
company?
I believe in my greatness. I believe I'm great. And that's what I always promote to people. I believe in your greatness. And when you do, I believe I'm an empress. I'm
You are
always
an
going
empress.
around. Every time I do my talks, I say, I'm great. I was born great. I'm great. I believe I'm great. I always say that. And it isn't narcissist. It's not narcissism.
No, not at
I'm just
all.
saying
not at all.
it's
Self-pride.
yeah,
No,
and I always say
absolutely.
it to other people. I say, like, when I start my talks, I always say, let me hear you say, I was born great. So I try to
Yes.
encourage people. So for me, it was a belief in myself that I could do this, and that people shouldn't be allowed to do this to me. They shouldn't have that kind of power. And I didn't want them to wield that type of power over me. So that's why I thought, this is what I'm going to do.
So you've risen from here, learnt the lessons from here, to telling such a fantastic story.
Yes.
So there you go. It's evidenced itself practically.
Yes.
I'm still quite interested
Yeah.
in this. I'm sorry to keep pushing, but I'm
No,
still quite
it's
interested in
fine.
this. How did third parties respond to this? Did you sort of get hate mail from third parties? Did you get support from third parties? Other parties, how did they respond?
I was supported by... Now, first of all, I must admit, I did contact a lawyer. So I contacted a lawyer at one point, and I said, well, Hugo Boss are trying to do this. What can I do? So they said, oh, you should just change the name. Change the name. You won't be able to fight them. Change the name. So I was like, I'm not changing the name. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
So but the community came out and they supported me. They were saying, oh, it's terrible. It's, you know, so it was all on social media.
Wow.
And one of the newspapers that I was in, iNews, they have a page on Facebook, so everyone was responding and saying, oh, this is, who do they think they are? So I had lots and lots of support.
Public support, yeah.
Public support. I was on TV shows, you know, I was on
Wow.
with Paul Mackenzie, he has a TV show, so I was on his show. I was on I was talking to lots of people, so I had support from people, so that really helped, the support that I had from people.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So David and Goliath. And
Yeah,
David
that's
won.
what people were saying. It was a David and Goliath situation. Yeah,
Yeah.
and yeah.
You won. Oh my
Well.
goodness. So then tell us now how, in a sense, this shapes the Dark Boy Boss. Because this is now about looking at the kings,
Yes.
looking at our young kings and
Yes.
emperors.
Yes, it
So
is
tell us.
because now Dark Boy Boss came about because of, you know, I look around and I see what's happening to our young kings. You know, at the end of the day, I'm a female, and you know, it's going to take our men to be the ones that are the mentors mainly to them, for them. But I thought to myself, what can I do? Yeah, as a
woman,
as a woman, as a mother, what can I do
Yeah.
to try to raise the self-esteem of our kings, because it hurts me
Yeah,
when I
yes.
see,
Same.
you know, what's happening to them. Yeah. So I thought my power is the written
Yes,
word.
the written
My
word.
power is the written word.
Yes.
So I thought, you know, I'm just going to have to do some affirmations. So it isn't a story, it's affirmations. It's
And
affirmations.
it's a beautiful book. If I might just show a couple of the
Well,
drawings.
you
the
you can, and then
illustrations.
you can read the first affirmation
Okay.
that's in there, just so that people can understand.
Let's just show some of the pictures in this book. Look how beautiful that illustration is. And I'll show another. It's absolutely gorgeous. Look at this. Isn't that beautiful? I really love the colourful illustrations in Dark Boy Boss, and it's definitely a book that I would buy for a nephew, my son.
Well, could I read the first? You could read the first affirmation.
Yes,
couldn't you?
okay,
Yeah.
I can do that. I can do that. Okay, let's
It's just
get
the green
to
one.
it.
Yeah,
Is it this one?
yeah.
Powerful affirmations start here. The dark boy comes from the genes of greatness, the original African, the real leader of the world. His physical attributes are second to none. The level of his intellect is beyond reproach. His genetic DNA is the oldest in the world, superior beyond measure, and his spirit is likened to pure gold. In one word, greatness.
I love the way you read that, Empress. I love the way you read that.
Thank you. Please
Wonderful.
tell us about the t-shirts. I loved the t-shirts. Please tell us about the t-shirts.
Okay. Well, again, it's another brand. So Dark Boy Boss is Dark Boy Boss from the Genes of Greatness. You can see it says Genes of Greatness on the throne of the child.
Yes, on the
that's
back.
sitting on the front.
As well,
Yeah.
and the front.
Yeah. So Genes of Greatness, again, it's because I believe that we come from the genes of greatness. We, as Africans, we come from the genes of greatness. So I've built an entire brand around it.
Right.
So that's the T-shirt, and the
Yes.
T-shirt is, that's my face on there, and it says Genes of Greatness. So it's just, again, promoting.
Yes,
Yeah?
yes.
But I have two organisations. Now, one is Genes of Greatness Tours. Now, Genes of Greatness Tours takes people back to Sierra Leone, starting with Sierra Leone, started to Sierra Leone for, you know, just to experience the country. And what we do is we let them get a feel of, you know, the people.
Association with Africa, isn't it?
We do, and we bring
motherland.
we bring people on so that they can understand about. They can build business there, how they can come and they can come and live there if they want to live. You know what? You know, it's giving the whole feel of the country and how easy it is to come and live there and build business there and become rich. Yeah, and to, you know, take advantage of all the resources, the natural resources that belong to us.
Exactly.
So that's Genes of Greatness Tours. And then there's the overarching companies, the Genes of Greatness Foundation,
Right.
and that's really for younger people. So mainly for children in Africa. Now this is just starting the Genes of Greatness Foundation. So it's looking at supporting orphans, supporting education, and also supporting ex-offenders as well, like people that have been, you know, incarcerated. So it's just trying to help the younger.
Yes,
The
because
younger-
employment for them are very bleak.
Yeah, so it's helping
Isn't
the
it?
younger.
Once.
Yeah, it's helping the mainly in Africa. So I'm starting in Gambia and starting
Right,
in
okay.
Sierra Leone, but also I want to tie it to some of the young people here as well. And the organisation, the foundation is actually the headquarters are actually in Gambia.
Right,
Yeah,
okay.
so it isn't.
Spreading yourself around.
Yeah, so it isn't Company's House. It's registered in Gambia, so
Right,
it's
okay.
an African organisation.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Wonderful. I mean, we can just go on and on, couldn't we, Amawale? You are doing so many things.
I'm trying.
And yes, and it sounds to me as if you are trying to be that example in terms of the practical application. You are trying to be that example.
Yes.
And this is what we need. I mean, could you tell us where people can find you on your social media platforms?
Yeah, I'm everywhere. I'm on
Yeah.
Facebook, so Facebook just Khadijah Ward.
Yes.
I'm on Instagram. I'm on Dark Girl Boss on Instagram or blacksterling.author. So I have two Instagram accounts. Also, you can email me, but it's such a long email address. But it's
Yeah. But they can message you, can't they?
Yeah.
through
So I think
Instagram
that
and
I
other
think in the
platforms?
first instance, if you contact me on social media,
Yes.
then you'll be able to get
Yes.
access to me and
Yes.
all of my products.
All of your products.
Yeah.
Khadijah, thank you so much. You're
you
definitely
for
a
having
role
me.
model
Thank
in
you.
terms of how it should be done.
Thank you so much.
I love that about the way you're moving forward. Amawale, anything else that you'd like to say to Khadijah at this time?
Just to say that you've clearly been doing a lot of work. But no, I won't take it.
Yeah,
Thank
and
you.
that's fine. But Khadijah, audience, I hope you have enjoyed our review this evening. You've been listening to the wonderful Khadijah and all of her works, her talents, her gifts. Please support her with these books. Support her in terms of her foundation. Thank you very much. That's all for now. Until next week. Good evening.